My sister dumped her kids on me for the fourth weekend in a row. When I told her I'm not their built-in babysitter, she screamed and called our parents. An hour later, the cops showed up at her door while she was partying with her friends. I, 32M, was halfway through my second beer when the doorbell rang. It was Friday night, around 7, and I knew exactly who it was before I even got up from the couch. Through the peephole, I could see my sister standing there with her 2 kids, a boy of 8 and a girl of 5, each holding a backpack that looked hastily packed. The kids looked tired. My sister looked dressed for a night out. I opened the door, and before I could say anything, she was already pushing past me, ushering the kids inside. She told me she had plans tonight and needed me to watch them, just for a few hours. The same thing she'd said last Friday, and the Friday before that, and the one before that too. I stood there, still holding the door open, and told her no. Just like that. No explanation, no apology, just no. She froze mid-step and turned around slowly. She asked me what I meant by no, her voice already climbing toward that sharp edge I knew too well. I told her exactly what I meant. That this was the 4th weekend in a row she'd dumped her kids on me without asking, without planning, without even giving me a heads up. I told her I had my own life, and I wasn't her built-in babysitter. Her face went red almost instantly. She started yelling, right there in my living room with her kids standing behind her, asking me if I was seriously going to turn away my own niece and nephew. She said I was being selfish, that family helps family, that she'd do the same for me if I ever had kids. I told her that wasn't the point. The point was respect. Basic decency. A phone call ahead of time instead of treating my apartment like a daycare drop-off. She didn't want to hear it. She told me I was a terrible brother, that I clearly didn't care about her or her children, and that she was going to call our parents right now so they could hear what kind of person I really was. Then she pulled out her phone and did exactly that. I watched her pace back and forth in my entryway, talking fast and loud into the phone, spinning the whole situation into something it wasn't. She told our mother that I refused to help her in an emergency, that I was abandoning her kids, that she had no one else to turn to, and I was being cruel. She didn't mention the previous 3 weekends. She didn't mention showing up unannounced. She just painted me as the villain and waited for backup. Our parents called me 10 minutes after she left. She'd taken the kids with her, dragging them back out to her car while muttering under her breath about how useless I was. My mother was upset, asking me how I could do this, telling me that family was supposed to be there for each other. I tried to explain the pattern, the repeated behavior, the lack of respect for my time. My father cut me off and said I should have just helped out this one time and dealt with it later. I felt that old familiar frustration rising in my chest, the same one I'd felt growing up, being the younger sibling, always expected to bend, always expected to accommodate. I told them both that I loved my niece and nephew, but I wasn't going to enable my sister's behavior anymore. Then I hung up. I sat back down on my couch and stared at my beer. It had gone warm. The apartment felt too quiet. Then I started thinking, really thinking. My sister wasn't in an emergency. She was going out. She'd been going out every weekend for a month, leaving her kids with me while she did God knows what. And it hit me then. If she was out partying, if she was really just dumping her kids to have fun, then maybe she wasn't in any position to be making decisions about their safety. I opened my laptop and started looking into it. I didn't know much about custody laws or child welfare, but I knew that repeated neglect, even if the kids were technically being watched, could be a problem. I also knew that if she was leaving them with me without my consent, that was a problem too. I called a buddy of mine who worked in social services. I kept it vague at first, asking hypothetical questions about what constitutes neglect, what the process was for reporting concerns. He told me that if someone was repeatedly leaving their children without proper arrangements, especially if the person they were leaving them with objected, that could be investigated. He also said that if the parent was engaging in reckless behavior while the kids were supposed to be in their care, that could escalate things. I asked him what counted as reckless. He said it depended, but partying, drinking, being unreachable, those could all be factors if the pattern was consistent. I thanked him and hung up. Then I sat there for another 20 minutes, weighing what I was about to do. I'm not a vindictive person. I don't like drama. But something in me had snapped when my sister stood in my apartment and tried to guilt me, tried to weaponize our parents against me, tried to make me feel like the bad guy for having boundaries. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized that this wasn't just about me. Those kids deserved better than being shuffled around like inconveniences. So I made the call. I contacted Child Protective Services and filed a report. I told them everything: the pattern of behavior, the lack of proper arrangements, the fact that she was frequently out partying while her kids were supposed to be in her care. I gave them her address, her phone number, and a timeline of the past month. They told me someone would look into it and thanked me for calling. Then I called the non-emergency police line. I told them I was concerned about 2 minors who might currently be left alone or unsupervised while their mother was out. I gave them my sister's address and explained that she'd tried to leave the kids with me an hour ago. I'd refused, and she'd taken them with her, but was supposedly going out for the night. The dispatcher said they'd send someone to check on the welfare of the children. I hung up and immediately felt a knot in my stomach. Part of me wondered if I'd gone too far. Part of me knew I hadn't. An hour passed. Then my phone rang. It was my mother, and she was hysterical. She told me the police had shown up at my sister's apartment. She told me my sister was being questioned. She told me that CPS had been notified and that there was going to be an investigation. Then she asked me, point blank, if I had done this. I told her yes. There was silence on the other end. Then she started yelling. She called me vindictive, cruel, petty. She said I'd just ruined my sister's life over a simple disagreement. She said I should be ashamed of myself. I let her finish. Then I told her that my sister had been neglecting her responsibilities as a mother for weeks, that she'd been dumping her kids on me without consent, and that if she was really out partying while her children were supposed to be in her care, then someone needed to step in. I told her that I didn't do this out of spite. I did it because those kids deserved better. My mother hung up on me. My father called 5 minutes later. He was calmer, but just barely. He asked me what I was thinking, told me I'd crossed a line, said that this was family business and I should have handled it privately. I told him I'd tried. I told him I'd set a boundary and my sister had trampled it. I told him that maybe if they'd held her accountable years ago, we wouldn't be here now. He didn't have much to say to that. He just told me I'd have to live with the consequences of what I'd done and hung up. I sat there in the silence of my apartment, phone in hand, and realized I'd just burned every bridge I had with my family. And honestly, I wasn't sure how I felt about it. Update 1. It's been 3 days since everything went down, and I'm still processing it all. I've gotten a lot of messages asking what happened after the police showed up at my sister's place, so here's the update. The police did a welfare check that night. When they arrived at my sister's apartment, they found her there with a group of friends. Apparently, she decided to host the party at her place instead of going out, probably because I refused to take the kids. The apartment was a mess. Empty bottles, loud music, the whole scene. The kids were in their bedroom with the door closed, trying to sleep through it. The officers questioned my sister and made it clear that having a party with alcohol, while solely responsible for 2 young children, wasn't illegal, but it raised concerns given the circumstances I'd reported. They documented everything, took photos, and filed a report with CPS. CPS contacted my sister the next morning. She called me at 6 a.m., screaming into the phone, telling me I'd destroyed her life, that she could lose her kids because of me, that I was a monster. I didn't engage. I just told her that if she was afraid of losing her kids, maybe she should start acting like a parent. Then I hung up. My parents stopped calling me. Instead, they rallied around my sister, helping her prepare for the CPS investigation, probably coaching her on what to say. I heard through a mutual family friend that my mother was telling everyone I'd fabricated the whole thing out of jealousy, that I'd always resented my sister for having a family when I didn't. That stung more than I expected. The CPS investigation is ongoing. From what I understand, they're doing home visits, interviewing my sister, interviewing the kids, and checking school records. I was also contacted by a caseworker who asked me to provide my account of events. I told them everything, showed them the texts from previous weekends where my sister had asked to drop the kids off last minute, and explained the pattern of behavior I'd witnessed. The caseworker was professional, but didn't give me any indication of which way things would go. They just thanked me for my cooperation and said they'd be in touch if they needed anything else. I haven't heard from my sister since that morning call. My parents sent me one text message, jointly, telling me that I was no longer welcome at family gatherings and that I'd made my choice. I didn't respond. The hardest part of all this isn't the fallout with my family, it's the doubt. Late at night, I lie awake wondering if I overreacted, if I should have just sucked it up one more time, if there was a better way to handle it. But then I think about those kids, sitting in their bedroom while their mother partied in the living room, and I remember why I made the call. I don't regret it, but that doesn't mean it doesn't hurt. Update 2. It's been 2 weeks now, and things have developed in ways I didn't expect. The CPS investigation concluded. My sister was found to have engaged in a pattern of inadequate supervision and was required to attend parenting classes and submit to random home visits for the next 6 months. She didn't lose custody, which I'm genuinely relieved about despite everything, but she's on a very short leash. If there's another incident, the consequences will be much more severe. She blames me entirely. I found out through that same family friend that she's been telling everyone I'm the reason she's being monitored, that I ruined her reputation, that I'm trying to take her kids away. None of it is true, but the narrative has taken hold in my family. My parents made their position clear. My mother sent me a long email detailing all the ways I've disappointed her, how I've always been difficult, how I've now proven that I value my own convenience over family. My father was shorter, just said he didn't recognize the person I'd become and that he hoped I was happy with my choices. I blocked them both after that. I realized that no amount of explaining would change their minds, and I was tired of defending myself for doing what I thought was right. But here's the thing that's been weighing on me, the kids. I haven't seen them since that night. I don't know if my sister has told them what happened or if they even understand why things changed. I think about them more than I probably should, wondering if they're okay, if they feel abandoned by me too now. I reached out to a family lawyer just to understand my options. I asked if there was any way I could maintain a relationship with my niece and nephew given the circumstances. The lawyer was honest with me. Without my sister's cooperation, it would be nearly impossible. I'd have no legal standing to request visitation, and any attempt to pursue it would likely make things worse. So I'm stuck. I did what I thought was right to protect those kids, and now I can't even see them. A couple of friends have told me I should reach out to my sister, try to apologize, smooth things over for the sake of the kids. But I can't bring myself to do it. Apologizing would mean admitting I was wrong, and I don't believe I was. It would also mean enabling her to continue the same behavior, just with me staying silent about it. I've started seeing a therapist. Not because I think I made the wrong choice, but because I need help processing the grief of losing my family. That's what it feels like, grief. Like they died, but they're still out there, just not for me anymore. The therapist asked me in our last session if I would do it all over again, knowing what I know now. I told her yes. She asked me why. I said because those kids needed someone to care more about their safety than about keeping the peace. She nodded and told me that sometimes doing the right thing costs us everything. I think she's right. Final update. It's been just over a month since everything happened, and I'm writing this final update because I think I've finally reached something like closure. My sister's situation stabilized. From what I hear, she's been compliant with the CPS requirements, attending her classes, keeping her home in order. I genuinely hope she's learned from this, and that she's being a better mother to her kids. Despite everything, that's what I wanted from the beginning. I haven't heard from my parents. I don't expect to. I've accepted that this is the cost of the choice I made, and I'm learning to be okay with it. But something unexpected happened last week that's changed how I feel about all of this. I got a call from an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. It was a woman who introduced herself as my niece's school counselor. She apologized for reaching out directly, but said she'd gotten my number from the CPS case file and wanted to let me know something. She told me that during a routine check-in, my niece had mentioned me. She'd said that I was the one who always helped them, that I made them feel safe, and that she missed me. The counselor said she wasn't supposed to pass along personal messages, but she felt I should know that the kids were asking about me. I didn't know what to say. I thanked her and hung up, and then I sat there for a long time, just staring at the wall. I don't know if I'll ever see those kids again. I don't know if my sister will ever forgive me or if my parents will ever understand why I did what I did. But knowing that my niece remembered me, that she felt safe with me, that she missed me, that means something. It means that what I did mattered. Not just to me, not just as some abstract moral stand, but to them. To the kids who were at the center of all of this. I'm still working through the loss of my family. I'm still figuring out who I am without them. But I'm not drowning in doubt anymore. I made the right call. It cost me almost everything, but I'd do it again. Sometimes being the good guy means being the villain in someone else's story. I can live with that. Thanks for listening, Reddit. I hope my niece and nephew grow up knowing that someone cared enough to fight for them, even when it was hard.